Welcome back, guys, to the Hassle of Hair, episode 125, with guest Micah Diele, videographer, podcaster, and photographer, and man of many interests like backpacking and everything else. He has a local 209 podcast called the Central Valley Podcast. If you go ahead and look Central Valley Podcast up on Instagram, you could go ahead and follow him now. Go subscribe to his show on Instagram, on YouTube. Hit all the links that I have for him below. And before we get into that interview, I do want to let you guys know I am a coach at Strike Fitness here in Los Baños, California. And if you are interested in learning martial arts, I would go join today. Go try our classes. But if you can't make the classes, I offer personals. All week, you just have to message me at Jesse the Hassle Diaz on Instagram for my availability and my rates. And I'll get back to you right away. And yeah, let's learn some martial arts, guys. Muay Thai, learning the basics of kicking, punching, and elbowing, and defending yourself. And also, if you are a member, if you talk to the front desk, they can schedule you a one-on-one with me there or not, and it will let me know. It will notify me right away that you scheduled one, and I'll plan it I'll plan it in my week, and I'll expect you there, and I'd love to see you. And man, these readings are hard. They're not even readings. These things are hard, guys, to do. But I also have my wife has a business called Raquel Diaz Designs. She makes custom designs for anything, cups, shirts, bags, anything you guys want. Follow her on Instagram to see what she does make. And other than that, if you guys are new to the podcast, we're an inspiration podcast, a podcast about people going after their passions in life and giving up everything they did before and going after it all, right? It's what me and my wife did. We quit our jobs in 2020, and we're still doing the thing, and we're having fun doing it. And yeah, if you guys know anybody that's doing anything interesting or inspiring, comment down below and let me know who they are, and I'll interview them. Also, the best thing you guys could do to support this podcast is subscribe, like, share, follow us on Instagram, The Hassle of Hair on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, everything. And the number one thing is telling a friend to listen. Telling a friend about the episode with Micah Diele, and just spreading the word. I love hearing from other people. I don't do this for money or fame or anything. I do it because I love talking to people, and I love talking to Micah Diele. It was fun, and he inspired me to do better and be better. And I love you guys. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Peace. That's the first thing. That's the first thing I noticed about your podcast is that your voice, you have a radio voice.
That's what people say, but I don't know. I've always been told hey, you have a good voice.
Yeah.
But I'm I guess maybe, you know what I mean? But it's I don't have a good singing voice, people.
It's like projection. When it comes to I think even from coaching, being talking to people,
mm-hmm.
you have to project it.
Yeah, yeah.
You project it.
Yeah, I'm a very hear what I have to say type of you know what I mean? Hear what I have to say type of person. But no, thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Micah.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys don't know, this is Micah Diele.
Well, I normally get Deal, Micah
Yeah.
Diele, but no, it's actually Diele. So it's I would say it's Italian. So pasta, Diele, pepperoni, rigatoni, Diele. That's what I tell people like that.
Yeah. And then you're from Merced?
Yeah. Born and raised in Merced. Yeah.
There's a history of Italians in Merced.
Yeah. Actually, so I actually don't know much about my Italian heritage, but my Nana and Papa moved from Colorado. They went on how am I trying to think? They went on 15 different interviews all throughout California to become teachers at a school. They went to Merced, had an interview. They drove all the way up to almost Reading, and then my Nana was I like that small town. Let's go back. And then that's how they got there. We're members of the Italian lodge, and we still go there today and everything.
There's a few. Do you guys still have? There's a few Italian spots in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few but now I think there's only 2 really.
Yeah.
There's like strings and then Ravellos, and maybe there's more, but who knows?
Did they know any like? Because from what I learned, my buddy was telling me that there was like the mob over there in Merced too.
Maybe. So there's the Italian Lodge, which my family's a part of,
Yeah.
and the Italian Lodge is basically like an event hall, and they have like this thing called Men's Night. Recently, ladies were invited, but for like even like it was so before the pandemic, it was like Men's Night, and like it was like the first Tuesday of every month. It's like all men, and you go there, and there's a raffle, and there's cheap drinks, free dinner, like just it's something for the community basically. But I was always like, man, I'm surprised like no one said anything about it just being men, like like in today's society, you know what I mean? And then this past year when we came back, like there were a woman there. I was like, what's going on here? I thought it was men's night. No, I don't care, but I was like, it's better off they don't ask the men if that's allowed and just say, hey, girls can come now.
Yeah. I only say ask because
mobsters in Merced, huh?
No, I have a buddy that his family like was originated from Merced. His name's Vinny Greco. That's the Greco family.
That sounds Italian as fuck,
well,
man.
Vincenzo.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah. He's actually a LBPD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he told me stories about his.
That'd be interesting. I should talk to that guy.
Yeah, he has like because I know in like Central Valley, like Portuguese is.
Well, I'm also Portuguese.
Yeah. Okay, so you're everything.
I'm the
you're
Italian.
Central Valley.
And then my grandma got mad at me because apparently I'm Scottish too, but like I never knew that, and I never like really identified as like that. So I'm like I'm Italian and Portuguese, but apparently I'm because I had a Scottish guy on my podcast. She was like, you're like Scottish, like just as much Portuguese as you are Scottish. I was like, I never heard about this, so I don't know if I really am.
Yeah, and you like so. Los Baños. I used to think like Central Valley like had a lot of Hispanic Mexican people, but Portuguese rule this kind of like this area over here.
Well, I feel like the farming area.
I said rule like they're like a gang or something. No,
they rule this area. The Portuguese. You're like, hey, and now you're interviewing the what is it called? Like the kingpin of them all right here. I got the Portuguese, I got the Italian side.
But before we get to, like,
I know we're already so off topic.
I might as well just introduce you, Micah
Diele.
Micah Diele. He's a photographer, director, podcaster, and pretty much.
Dude, yeah, I basically am a photographer, videographer. I have a podcast all about the Central Valley of California called Real Talk. I always say it's like the longest podcast name. It's Real Talk and Whatnot was like the first name. And then recently I've been going by a Central Valley podcast. Yeah. And the reason I did that was I realized that no one had a Central Valley podcast as the name. And I was like, I'm just going to take this one too, you guys.
The podcast with 2 names.
Yeah. And so it's like a hella long Real Talk and Whatnot, a Central Valley podcast. Yeah. But I did that because it makes people more aware that like, hey, there is a podcast in Central Valley. Like I came to find out you through, I think, following what's his name? Gabriel, is that his name?
Yeah.
And so I know him as Imagine Way More. Him on Instagram, and then I know like Our Soul and Arthur and stuff like that. So just mutual friends is how I kind of stumbled upon yours. But really, it's kind of hard to find podcasts in the Central Valley unless you know about them. Yeah. Like, and that's why like when I reached out to you because I was like, hey, like, can I come on? Like, it just like there's not too many of us, and so anytime I see somebody in the Central Valley doing a podcast, it's like I know how much work that takes. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like a lot of people think you're just talking. You know, you're talking. That's it. And it's like, no, man. There's like 20 hours of editing we have to do, or whatever it may be. Like, and especially if you want like I've been doing like these promos and stuff like that are like I film like afterwards, but it's just like it ends up making my editing process a lot more. But like I want to do it because I want to put out quality for the area and highlight the talented people within the area. Because I'm sure you grew up in Los Banos?
No, I grew up in San Jose.
Oh, really? What brought you to Los Banos?
I moved here because it was cheaper.
Really?
But then I fell in love with the people here. And
when was this?
2000.
I'm asking the questions now.
I have no problem. But 2016, 2015. But then I lived here in 2009.
Oh, so you kind of were familiar with the area a little bit.
My grandma moved here in 1998.
Oh, so you always came and visit and stuff like that.
So like I've seen it all. I've seen when there's nothing here. I've seen when people were all depressed because of the house. Everybody bought their house at like 300. Yeah, they bought their house at 300,000. They dropped down to like 80,000.
Yeah. Well, when that happens again, so I can buy a house, man. Sorry for all the people who are buying houses now, but like.
Well, don't say that because I do own this house. Yeah. So.
Well, when did you buy it? Sorry, I don't know.
2020.
Okay, well, you beat the like barely beat the freaking. Because my parents bought their house in like 2020 and like in the beginning of it, and like it's gone up $100,000 since they bought it, and I was like, that's crazy. Like you guys got in at the perfect time.
Yeah, right now it's almost double now.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
It's insane. Like, but that's like, I don't know. It's just. It's our luck. I guess. The thing was, we were like working our butts off to, all right, 2020, and we finally did it. And luckily we just hit like where it just flipped because of the pandemic and everything.
Yeah. Like the perfect timing.
Yeah.
That's cool. I don't know how we started talking about houses, man.
No, but the one thing I do like.
Oh, Central Valley.
Yeah. The one thing I do like, finding you through podcasts and through everybody we follow, you're curious.
I just ask a lot of questions, man.
Yeah, you're curious, and then like that made me like, because I don't find that many people like that. Usually, people are just into like one thing and they stick to that one.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's like because you kind of like your podcast is similar to mine in the sense of like you go have whoever on, but then you also like you're passionate about like, is it MMA, right? Yeah.
Muay Thai, MMA.
Yeah, all martial arts basically, right? And so then you have a different podcast, same podcast?
I have a different podcast, The Clinch.
The Clinch,
Up,
right? Clinched Up.
With Jesse D.
With you.
Yeah, with me. But that became like, see, that was too hard.
Yeah.
That was too hard. And like you're saying, podcast is hard. But you're curious. You like knowing how people do things.
Yeah, like the different, and that's like why I have on, like whether it's a teacher, the Mayor Merced, like rap artist, a singer, to like baseball players, athletes, internet sensations, whatever it may be. Like I'm just curious on like each person's path and then like what drove them. Because the thing that I get from podcasts and the reason I get like so amped up like when I'm on a podcast and things like that is because like I just anytime I have a conversation with somebody I feel so like recharged afterwards. I always say this like me and you right now, like when you're just vibing with somebody, you're kind of figuring out what drives them. I'm telling you what drives me. You're bonding about these things. And then afterwards, you kind of have a new perspective and new appreciation for things. Yeah. And that's kind of like why I like it. Because when I started my podcast, I was just like, I mean, when you start your podcast, it's kind of like, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You're kind of nervous. Yeah. You don't want to put out stuff. You're like, and it's like, you just have to bite the bullet. And like, I tell people like, it's okay if your first ones suck. Like, who cares? Like your first ones need to suck in order for you to grow. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. And so I never thought my podcast would be what it is. And that's not even that it's like that big or anything either. You know what I mean? It's just that I have random people hitting me up saying like, hey, I like what you're doing. And something that I never thought it would be an outlet to is that a lot of people who moved away from the Central Valley listen to my podcast to see what's going on in the Central Valley. And like, it's just really cool because a lot of times you hear people moving away because they don't like the Central Valley or they have whatever their opinion is about it. But it's really cool to see a lot of people who moved away like, hey, I like your show. I like what you're doing. It keeps me updated on what's going on in the community and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think the people saying that they don't like the Central Valley, it's because they don't want to be the first to create things. They want it handed to them.
They want to hand it to them. They want to, or they want to party or something like that. You know what I mean? And I get it. If you want to go party, go somewhere else. No, but like the Central Valley is just misunderstood. And I always say that. Like it gets a bad rep. Like growing up here, everyone talks shit about the area. Yeah. It was like, oh, there's nothing to do. We're dead. There's like, there's no places to eat. There's no places to go. And then kind of what the pandemic showed me is that like, hey, we have everything a big city has, like, and it's only growing. Like we're like in the beginning stages of big cities. You know what I mean? We're just continually growing. Merced has a UC. All the towns around it are growing. You know what I mean? And the Central Valley is unique in the sense that it's a collection of small towns that make up this big area of California. You know what I mean? And it is a completely different vibe than if you go to San Francisco, than if you go to LA. It's a big city in a small area. You know what I mean? And obviously there's like a whole bunch of sub towns and stuff like that. But the Central Valley is cool because it's like there's so many hidden gems within it. Like you can be from a town and like I can be from Merced and still go to like a new place just because there's so many hole in the wall places, and there's so many like little things like gems and things like that I think that people used to think were bad things, and now like after 2020, I feel like a lot of people are hopeful in the area. You know what I mean? There's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, one would say.
Yeah, I'm finding better food. I'm finding better things to do.
There's better things to do. People are willing to do what they want. I think the pandemic showed people that like a lot of people are afraid to take that leap. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so like my podcast, it didn't happen the year of the pandemic, but it happened the year after. And it was kind of just like I got into this. What I do is I throw myself into uncomfortable situations and I just roll with them. So like when I got into photography, videography, it was like almost 3 years ago now. But like within my first 6 months, I was shooting my first wedding, and like, did I feel comfortable? No. Did I feel like I didn't know what I was doing? Yeah. But you throw yourself in those situations, and it's to sink or swim or fight or flight. You know what I mean? You're either gonna run or you're gonna stay there and try to do it. And so I throw myself into those situations, and I just kind of roll with them. And that's kind of how my podcast got born. Was like, I'm gonna try this out. I was going to be called Trail Talks and whatnot and be all about hiking. Let me tell you, I've barely gone hiking the past 2 years.
I guess when you first started like filmmaking and all that stuff, you wanted to do like a travel show.
Yeah. So did you go through the little
hiking show?
Yeah, exactly. And so we had there was this the reason I even really got into it is I linked up with my buddy Jimmy, and there's this brand called Prana, and they're make a video about your dream job. And it was like we made this short 3-minute video about what our dream job was. And we didn't win the contest, but what we did do is that we started working together every day. And then the pandemic hit, and then we still just continued to perfect our craft. He was already into it for 4 or 5 years. So I was just had a good mentor that I could like learn from basically. And through then we just basically for the past 3 years or 2 years since the pandemic just been hustling it out. And this year it feels like things are paying off. Like I feel like I'm getting good amount of people watching the podcast. I'm getting client work on the regular with photography, videography, where like the first and second year, I was just like, I'm like getting a couple gigs, like barely, you know what I mean? And like past 3 months, I've been so busy nonstop. I used to be a substitute teacher for high schools, and like haven't let me tell you, that's crazy. Haven't had the I haven't subbed or anything. I've been so busy every single week landing new jobs and stuff like that. So it's just really a blessing to be where I'm at. And it feels good because it's like people are afraid to do what they want to do. Yeah. I feel like, and it's scary taking that leap. Of course it is. Like no one wants to fail, and everyone's afraid of failure, but it's like, even if you want to do something, you could fail at it and try it again and fail at it and try it again. And like with photography and videography, it's like you do that, or like, but you don't fail at it, but you make a shitty video, and then you make a less shitty video, and then you make a just shitty video, and then you make a not shitty video. You know what I mean? I mean, you progress throughout things, and like I think people are afraid to take that jump. And
see, I'm like into a book right now. It's the growth mindset, like fixed and growth mindset. It talks about how people learn and how people view learning and getting better at things. And both of us have like a growth mindset. Like we're fine. Our failures don't define us basically. And people that have a fixed mindset, they live off of their successes. Like meaning if they they talk about in the book the IQ test. The IQ test was basically to show what you need to work on. Yeah. People viewed it as what you need to work. Some people view it as what you need to work on, and then some people view it as this is you.
This is how smart you are, or this is how dumb you are. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm sure if I took an IQ test right now, I don't know how good it would be. Especially my math section, you guys.
Yeah. And it's crazy because that you have to go through these when you first start something off, and I'm starting to learn this because the more things I do, it's all the little things that you got to get used to. Like when you first start fighting, you have to get used to the weight cut. You have to get used to going to the doctor to get the medical. Getting used to waiting to fight. When you're doing a podcast, you got to get used to setting up all the little things.
Yeah, all the things that no one thinks about. Yeah. Like and it's all a learning process. Yeah. the first time you do it, it's going to seem stressful or going to seem like, oh, but the more you do it, the more it becomes a routine and the regularities of it. Then it starts becoming like, okay. And then you can add on more stuff, basically. You know what I mean? And like with video photography, same thing with like, you learn something and then you're like, okay, now how can I improve? You learn that stuff, master it. How can I improve?
But even going to that first wedding, like you said, you had that first wedding after 6 months. Like there's things that you were like probably thrown off by, like people wise.
Yeah. And just like, and it was just one of those situations where, and I always tell people, go, like, if you're thinking about something and you're scared to do it, I think you should do it. Like, I think you should jump in and do it because, like the pandemic showed me that like, nothing is granted. You know what I mean? What is it? Everything's, how do you say this? Everything, you can't take everything for granted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's that's what I meant to say. But what I'm saying is, like, nothing's guaranteed. There we go. Nothing's guaranteed in life. You know what I mean? And I think for a long time, it was just like, I was going to be a teacher because I went to college for far too long, like 7 years, basically. Then I was like, okay, like finally, like I went to ASU, and then it was just like, it got to a point where I was like, well, what's the quickest thing I can get a major in? Because I've been going to school for too long. Educational studies, that's what it was. I did that. Then I was like, I guess I'm going to be a teacher. Like, it sounds like a good idea. I just have to pass whatever test I want to pass. And so then I was like, what subject do I want? And I was like, I kind of like history. I kind of like space sciences. Like, I guess I'll try this. I tried it, and then took the test, missed by 1 point. Took the test again and missed by 2 points. And then I kind of was like, maybe this is not what I want to do. The dream job thing came along, kind of just like the stars kind of aligned for me to be like, well, I'm 20. It was 26 when I kind of decided that. I was like, I'm 26 now. So it's now or never if I kind of want to jump into something new. Yeah. That's the way I looked at it. It was like, there's still enough time before I'm 30 to where I can have new skills. I can do something, but I just got to put in the work. You know what I mean? And so thankfully, like the dream job video came about, and then I linked up with Jimmy, and we were already really best friends before that, but I didn't do anything with video photography related. And then as soon as we did that, we were just pretty much working together on everything. And we still do. We both have like individual clients now, but like anything that's bigger commercial work we do together. But it's good to surround yourself with people who want you to grow.
And how was your childhood? Like when you that's a broad question. Like how did you grow up? Did you have good grades?
So I've been trying to think. I really like to say that like I feel like I grew up in a white picket fence neighborhood. Like I was so sheltered as a kid that like when I got to high school, I was like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like I was like, people have sex before marriage? Like, you know what I mean? I was like, what's going on?
Did you grow up religious?
Yeah, I grew up really, really Christian. Always went to like youth group, Bible study, church every Sunday. Haven't really been going since I graduated high school. But it was like, I literally grew up in the church. All my best friends grew up in the church too. And I went to high school with them as well. So it was like, I was always raised in the church, and then I had like mediocre grades always. Like I would just say like B's and C's. I never was necessarily a bad kid, but I was never like top of my class either. Yeah. In high school, I did like even in middle school there was like this video production class that we had, and I super liked it. In high school, do you remember those flip video cameras? It was like a square block video camera, and then you pulled it and like a USB stuck out. Anyways, that was like my first camera that I really recorded, and me and my friend would record like YouTube videos, and like we made it a point for like 1 year, like almost every week we made a YouTube video with a script, and like that was the time where like Jake and Logan Paul were like just starting out, so it was like oh, maybe we can do this. So
how old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay, I'm 31.
Oh, so just 2 years younger.
2 years, but I feel like there's a big that generation gap was like big because I was like the beginning of YouTube.
Yeah.
And it moved fast.
Yeah, well, and when I got to high school, when I was in junior high, I remember discovering you. That's when YouTube was coming popular. Yeah. But then in high school, it was like YouTube was just a thing. You know what I mean?
And then I was like just out of high school, so I was worried about getting a job rather than
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, and it's funny because like you're saying that's a big age gap, but it's crazy to think like even through. So what I think is crazy is that like when I was in high school, they the first iPhone came out, but people weren't like phones weren't allowed at schools. Like when I was in high school, and like 3 years later, like every single kid had an Instagram account, all followed each other. But like when I was in high school, no one had Instagram. It was Facebook, and MySpace was coming off. But it was like there was like no one cared about Instagram. But 2 years later, like everybody had Instagram, and then 5 years later, which is crazy for me to think about, every single kid had a Chromebook, no more school books.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but when I went to school, we still had lockers and everything. Kids don't use lockers anymore, dude.
Yeah.
You go to high school, no one uses a locker.
Even like my coach at Strike Fitness in Los Banos, California.
Strike Fitness, Los Banos, go there.
No, but
Jesse Diaz, coach.
No, my coach like wants to make it like a book for the kids, like a handbook for the combos and all the stuff that we learn. And the kids are like a handbook. When she was talking about it, they're like a handbook, a book. Like, then I had to explain to her like all they have is iPads.
Yeah,
like,
give them a PDF file.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Be easier for you too.
Even my daughter, like, she does all her homework on her computer.
It's all computer. Everything's computer. It kind of makes me sad, honestly, like a little bit, because I'm like, I don't know if it's the nostalgia in me that like wishes at it, but it's also just like it's such a different environment in classrooms now, because like when I was substitute, like it's the chillest job in the world. I'd be like, "What's up? My name's Mr. Diele. I'll be your sub for the day. Your assignment's on Google Classroom. If you need me, I'll be over here." And then like I'm like, whatever the kids do, they do. Like freaking kids would be like throwing bouncy balls like freaking 80 miles an hour in my head. I was like, and I can't freak out because I'm like, I'm not gonna be the teacher that freaks out. You know, I was just like, hey, come on. Like that's all I do. I'm like, it didn't hit me, so I wasn't that pissed. But I was just like, hey, come on, kids. Like, and I don't know.
It's just different.
Yeah, it's a lot different, and it's interesting to see just the evolution, because I've been a substitute for like almost 5 years now. Or I was, and it was just funny because even when I first started to now, it's just like you just see the times that change. Like you're even saying like 2 years for me and you. Well, like 2 years in subbing, it's like you can even see like you see the growth of actual kids. I'm like, man, I'm getting old.
So you started doing the YouTube videos and
so we started that. We're like, maybe we'll make it on YouTube after we didn't win the Piranha thingy. Yeah. And so we tried to make this little nature show. We made a little group called the Higher Grounds, and it's just like a collective of creators. You know what I mean?
And what interests you? Why do you love the outdoors so much?
I just have always been camping as a kid. I love backpacking. I've been on like multiple backpacking trips. I did like the Lost Coast Trail that's in Northern California. It's like the last part of the California coastline that's not touched by anything. Like so like it's just like pretty much empty. It's just empty. It's just all nature. And it's like you have to look at the tides, and you can only cross these sections when the tides are low. And it was like a 28-mile backpacking trip that I did. And I just
say it like it's not a big deal.
Well, it's funny because it says it's 26 miles, but our like on the app it said like we had to hike like back and forth places and different routes, and it was like it got us for like 45 miles for the whole entire trip. And it was just like, I mean, it was really, I say it's not a big deal because when I'm out there, I'm just having fun. Yeah. I'm not thinking that like I'm out here. Like,
but the way you're saying it, you did it without a map. Like it was.
Oh, no, you have like a little map. Like you just have like a map of it, and then you have like the zones. And so once you get to this beach, you're like, I can't go to this beach over here unless it's low tide. And before we left, we look up like the times of the low tide. Yeah. And then you cross those areas. But that area is like one of the coolest places that I've ever hiked. And then I do like backpacking trips every year. I have a group of guys I go with, and we just this year we're not even going backpacking. We're just gonna go camping, just because sometimes. We did this trip last year, and I brought my dog, and his paws were just eaten up by the end of it. So I just felt really bad. But
like by the floor?
But yeah, so it was just shale rock, so just crushed rocks like everywhere. And dude, it was like going into it, we like I knew that like it was a 3,000 foot elevation climb in 3 miles. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's gonna be tough, but like it shouldn't be that hard. And it was so, and then it was like 1 mile flat. So then it was. In 2 miles, we went up 3,000 feet, and it was just like you take like 10 steps and go like, take another 10 steps, and once we got up there, it was cool and everything. But like it was supposed to be a 5-day trip, but on the 4th day, my dog's paws were just like eaten up, and I just felt bad, and he was just. He was not. I was like, we got to get you home, man, before you're getting more hurt, basically.
And do you just want to stick to backpacking in California?
No, I would love to go other places backpacking.
Have you?
No, I haven't. Yeah. And that's just only because like I've been like hiking in like Utah. I've been like to a lot of hiking places in Utah, Arizona, but I've never gone backpacking. I really want to do the Grand Canyon, the Havasu Falls. You've probably seen it. It's like this waterfall, and it's like super crystal blue water, and it's like at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And I would love to do stuff, but the older I get, I feel like there's just not enough time in the day. And I used to be really into like hiking and stuff like that, and I still am like pretty much since I graduated high school for like the next like 10 years, like I went hiking all the time. But the past 2 years of me trying to grind out and do what I want as like a profession, like I've had to like kind of sacrifice like weekend trips. You know, a lot of my stuff is, I mean, gigs are on the weekends, you know what I mean? A lot of gigs are on the weekends and things like that. And it just like, I mean, I know I could make time, but it's just, I've kind of been just put my head down since I've had the podcast and just been grinding on that and photography, videography. But I just love outside. It makes me feel good. It makes me, I mean, we're meant to be outside, you know what I mean? Even if you just walk outside, you get the sun to hit your face. Like the vitamin D feels good, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that everyone needs to go out in nature because like people who are cooped up in a room all day, like it's like, hey, your body's not meant to like be there. Your body's not meant to be cooped up and like eating fast food. Like, well, I eat fast food and everything too, but like go at least go give your body like some of it, what like the ancestral DNA remembers and stuff like that, because we're not meant to live like this. Like I mean, we've evolved to live like this, but that's not how we originally lived.
There's something draining about, especially because you're editing, you edit the video and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and there's something draining about just sitting in front of a computer and just.
Dude, and like you can get lost. I will sit there. I'll get to like my studio or our studio at like 7 a.m. sometimes, and like I can edit till 4 without taking a break and not really even like I'm like, oh, like that just all that time went by. But I know what I need to start doing is like working out before. Yeah. Then going, taking a break, and then coming back. You know what I mean? Kind of like split it up. Because I think sometimes it's just you become unproductive after you've been sitting there for so long. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just kind of becomes monotonous. But I did like 3 weddings in the past 3 weeks, so like I have so much editing to do. And I'm going to Costa Rica on Saturday.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
What are you going for?
For a wedding. Yeah, for another wedding.
To shoot a wedding?
To shoot a wedding. It's like my best friend's. It's my best friend's sister, and so all of them are going. All my friends are going, and they were like, "Hey, we'll pay for your trip if you come out there." And so me and my buddy are flying out there on Saturday.
And do you do video and photography?
Yeah. So I did. So
holy shit.
So I did photography for a weekend. So I don't do them at the same time.
Okay.
That's yeah.
I was like, you're like.
We have done one wedding like that, but it's like you for sure would need a third shooter. Like to 2 people, there's too much going on. But yeah, so this past weekend I did a photography wedding, and then 2 weekends prior to that I did 2 videography weddings. But doing all of them, unless you had like, I feel like if you had a team of 4, that's cool. Yeah. But even a team of 3 is like too much going back and forth between video and photography. But I mean,
yeah, and when you do the photography and the video, how hard is it is it natural when you capture moments, like emotional moments? Because I know quite a few photographers now, and there's one photographer that like super, like she stands out. I just interviewed her via Zoom, Visual Knockout.
I'll have to check her out.
Yeah, she does like fighting.
Oh, I did. I saw the promo or something. I think of it. Yeah, I checked out her page.
And out of all the fighting photographers, like for some reason.
Her stand out to you?
Yeah, they stand out because it shows a story. Like the other ones are just action shots.
Yeah.
Like, is there like a style that you have?
Yeah. So people actually, Gabriel asked me the other day. He was like, "What would you describe your style as?" When I posted a photo, and it's like honestly, I try not to even think about styles. I try to like what I always tell people is like I try to like take you to. Like what I saw. So I try to make you feel what I felt when I was there, or make you feel what I think the picture should feel like. You know what I mean? So I sometimes, you know, and it's like I don't even know what the popular styles are. You know, there's a lot of film grain that's really popular right now. Sometimes I do that if it fits the vibe of what I'm doing. But basically what I like to do is try to with photography is like take you to that moment, to that time, and show you maybe not what my camera saw, but what I saw or what I felt with the photo. And so I look at it that way, and it allows me to kind of be a little more creative, where like maybe some photos I edit, you know, a whole bunch. You know, and I make it. You know, I'll make things look like I'll make it look like it completely different than what the actual photo is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like all their own photographers can have their own opinions about. Some people like who are like old photographers are like, you know, try not to edit your photos that much, and then like the new age photographers like are freaking photoshopping everything. You know what I mean? So I have like a little medium balance between the two. You know what I mean? I like to take clean photos where I don't have to edit them that much, but I also just like to show things the way I see them, the way I felt it to be. And I think that a lot of people try to emulate other styles, and that's really popular right now, is like moody styles, moody vibes and stuff like that. And I like to do that every now and then, but I think it just be you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just as if you're going to be a fighter, if you're going to be a podcast host, if you're going to be a teacher or whatever it is, just be the authentic you, because people like seeing like the raw emotions. And something that I like when you shoot on a camera, you shoot in RAW, and it's like a RAW format. It allows you to capture like all the details of stuff. But I always say like you people are attracted to like the raw self of other people. Like, you know what I mean? Like people want to see like you be you. And when you're being authentic, people are drawn to you. When you're trying to put on this front that like, hey, like, you know, like old time radio hosts, it's like, how's it going, Jeff? Yeah. Like, you know, they talk all like weird and stuff like that. Like, I just talk like this, people. Okay. Yeah. But I just think that it's just important to be yourself and to be who you want to be, because people see that and people are drawn to that. And I mean, I know I just turned that into a different.
No, it's and trying to find people to interview and trying to find, I think it goes with everything, because the more people I meet, it's hard to interview young people.
Oh, like, you wouldn't think that the difference of like like the age, like even if it's like 5 years or something like that, you're like, oh, different time.
Well, anybody like 22 and younger,
they're millennials, right? Yeah. That age, right? I don't, maybe they're not, because we're still in the same. What
generation? I don't know. Generation Z or something like that. I think that's a
something.
Zombie movie.
Yeah.
but no, because they haven't experienced stuff and they haven't found themselves.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it's hard to teach or interview somebody that hasn't found who they are.
Yeah. It's like they're kind of still searching for it. Yeah. Like and you have to like, and it's because by the time when you're 21, 22, you're like, oh, I know who I am. It's like, no, dude, if I could go back to myself at 21, 22, like, I'd give him advice. I'd give him so much advice. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just interesting because, like, we kind of, like, it's not that we're that old. We're, like, I'm 29, you're 32, 31?
31.
31. So, like, we've lived enough to kind of understand who we are, our trials and tribulations, your failures, the things that, you know, you probably wanted to do at 18 and when you look back and laugh at or something like that. Where, like, when you're 21, 22, 23, you're still finding yourself. And that's okay, because everyone needs to find themselves. But it is harder to talk to them about things because their perspectives are different. And maybe it is a good thing, you know what I mean, to ask people and hear their perspectives, because that generation for sure has different perspectives than me and you, and with things like that. But, like, It is different, but then again, it's like also different when you interview. Have you interviewed like anybody who's like pretty old?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's almost it. And they're probably thinking the same thing about us. You know what I mean? So it's just funny to think about. But like it's like funny because I generally keep people like that are around my age.
Not that I interviewed them, but no, I've interviewed two people and met people in person that they're like in their 50s and they just don't know who they are. And that's a scary, like, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's why I think that, like, doing a podcast kind of helps you kind of understand who you are. Yeah. And it's like a benefit of it that just happens to be with you doing it. Yeah. Because it's like, I don't know, I'm feeling more and more comfortable of being myself now because I'm just on myself on camera doing the promos. Don't you hate when you do promos? You're like, hey, how's it going? Yeah. Blah, blah. Like, you just like don't know how to talk. I'm like trying to explain to people like, hey, no, like this is like I will sit and do like 50 takes sometimes, you know. But recently I've been doing better. Sometimes I like no, I'm keeping this in, you guys. Like,
well, the promos, when it comes to knowing what you're gonna say, like when you have to say like, oh, this episode's out, this, like when it's scripted, because that's kind of scripted.
Yeah, and that's because it becomes harder because then you're like, you can mess up versus right here we can't mess up because it's just a raw conversation. conversation that we're having.
Yeah, it's not raw at all. You're just trying to just say what you need to say and then get done, and it's the hardest thing. It's like maybe 2 sentences, and you can't do it.
Check out my new podcast with like you just can't even think of their name, and then you're like, episode number, like what episode is it? And then you like go on your phone, and you're like, okay, episode this. So when did you start your podcast?
I started mine 2020, summer 2020.
So pandemic podcast,
yes.
PP, huh? I'm just kidding.
But it's seriously like now that I've been doing this and I'm doing it for a while. When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing, and I kind of know what I'm doing now. I'm like just in the recent 10 episodes.
You feel like a little more comfortable, or
not
what?
more comfortable talking because I could
no
talking.
No, but I meant like just doing it, like what you're doing.
Yeah, like where I want to take it, what I want to do with it.
Gotcha.
You know? And it's just at first it was. I mean, I really don't care. At first, I was trying to find a niche. I was trying to do something where it was like I was trying to do local. I was trying to do all that stuff. But now it's kind of just like
having people who you're interested by.
Yeah, who interest me.
You don't want to, and you don't kind of want to put yourself in the box to where like I'm only doing a martial arts podcast. Well, I mean, because then it kind of is like, well, what if I meet someone super interesting and now I can't have them on because I'm in this one niche that has nothing to do, and then you know what I mean, like that. And what I did was like mine's like all about the central. So mine originally I was like I didn't know what I was gonna do. I recorded. So when you started your podcast, did you like record episode number 1 and release just one? Or did you like record a few of them and then release a few?
I still like I don't like put them away. I just right when I do them, I put them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my mind's crazy. I just like go. I just
go. Well, mine's like I've been like
there's no structure to what I do.
Yeah. So after my
because people always tell me like they.
Well, I was wondering like so when will this one air? You think?
Probably Thursday.
Oh damn! You'll like turn around editing time and everything.
Yeah,
that's quick.
Yeah, it's not really. I could put more quality into it, but I just like putting it
out.
Yeah, and then I'm also busy on the outside, like doing a bunch of other things. But it's, I don't know. Like when I first started this, like I kind of didn't know what I want to do, but I want to show people's like how people like the difference between success and failure, right? Why people are successful, why people are fail at things. Because like you look at people that are successful and sometimes they just had horrible childhoods, They didn't have a great like
there's that one
IQ.
There's that one quote that's like, what is it? Hard times
make strong men.
Yeah. Make
now, but Joe Rogan played that out.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Dude, I know. I like Joe Rogan, but like,
everybody.
There's so many like of those motivational things from him that they just like they almost don't mean anything anymore. I'm like, man, like.
But I'm trying to just figure out like what's the difference between someone that's successful and that's not successful, because like I don't know about you, I didn't have like successful people around me growing up. So it's like there was no one going after their dreams, and then maybe that generation didn't do that.
Yeah, and so that's what like my dad kind of was saying. Like, you know, I think he was like kind of wishing that, because I was like, well, if you could have done like anything, what would you have done? He was like, I probably should have like done something with like skiing, like something while he was young, like kind of just like. Yeah. But granted, he had a family that he started, and then he just did what he did, you know, to make them. To make us like be able to live the life that we did. And like on my birthday, he sent me a text message. It kind of made me sad because he was like, I never got kind of said something about like didn't get to live out my dream or something like that. Yeah, but no, it's not like that.
No, dude, you're making me like
But I'm glad. Like he was like, but I love seeing you do what you love to do, or something like that. And then I responded like, Dad, you may have not like been able to do that, but you provided me a life that allowed me to be able to do this. Yeah, you know what I mean? And like that means more to me than anything. You know what I mean? So it's just really cool that like the support I've gotten, like it blows my mind when I get a random person that messages me like, hey, listen to your podcast. Like so many random people I don't know. Like, and it's like, don't podcast stats suck? It's like what do you upload to upload to everything else? You upload so you upload on YouTube, right? Yeah. You upload anywhere else?
Buzzsprout.
Okay, so I do the same exact thing, and then that puts it on everything else, right? But like the stats kind of suck on podcasts. Like all you see is downloads, but you don't see plays. Yeah, you know what I mean?
And it's funny because I had to think of it. At first, I was like, the first day I'd upload it, and I'm like, okay,
How many views? How many downloads am I getting? But podcasts are like a long game thing. Yes. You have to think. It's like we're in here for the long haul. Like you could freaking have 4 years of like not that many people, and then one episode might, and
it's crazy because like it's people. I get all the time like, oh, I just found your podcast, so I downloaded like 20 and I listened to all 20.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world?
Sometimes I'm like, some people are like, I started from the beginning and listened to all of them. I was like, maybe don't. Maybe you shouldn't listen to the beginning ones. No, it's kidding. But it's funny because if you go back and watch like your first podcast, it just makes me chuckle because I'm like, this guy had no idea what he was getting into. Yeah. Like, that guy on the camera had no idea. But like, you go to the most recent episode, you're like, that guy. To me, I'm like, that guy kind of seems to have it figured out. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, like I'm always a big proponent of fake it till you make it, man. Like I mean, like with whether it was photography, videography, my podcast, and my whole thing was like, because I do photography, videography. Recently, I used to want to do a podcast every single week, but that's like a lot. It's a lot. Like, especially when I'm trying to put out the quality that I am trying to put out. It's like, that's why sometimes when I tell people like it takes me like 30 hours to edit a podcast sometimes. They're like, I don't get it. Like, how is that? I'm like, well, like I record separate promos. I'm editing clips together. I'm putting music in the background. I'm like, all that
takes time.
Dude, yeah. And then I'm like going out to people. And recently I've been trying to get like sponsors and stuff like that too. And it blows my mind about how so many people are like down to support the podcast because like I just have friends who have their businesses, and this random this guy named Nathaniel, his family all lives in Central Valley. His company moved to Tennessee. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, can I be a sponsor on your show? And I was like, yeah, man. And then he was like, hey, if I have a gift to send you, like, where would I send it?
Yeah.
And then like it just like things like that, like I feel like when I look at the numbers on like Buzzsprout or whatever the podcast apps there are, I feel like not that many people are listening. But when I like get messages from like all these random people that are listening, I'm like, obviously it's getting out there somehow. I just don't know how. You know what I mean?
It's like it's everything. It's your promos, it's your YouTube video, it's the listens, the audio, and just everything that you do. It's like sending your culture out, and then like in my head, but your quality, right? I love quality too, but at the same time, like I'm just one guy.
Yeah.
And I
have a background in photography, videography. So like for you, it'd be like dedicate. So I went into it for 2 years just doing that. You know what I mean? And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll start a podcast. And then they integrate. For you, it'd be like, well, let me
do everything.
Yeah, let me focus now 2 years on videography, photography just to make my podcast. You know what I mean? When it's like, that's not what necessarily you're passionate about. You're passionate about your mixed martial arts and coaching and podcast. Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, like, I'm like, all right, just push.
But if you ever need help, man, like at least in like getting stuff set up, just let me know. I'm all about helping other podcasts in the area because it's like, even if it's just like you want a nice camera set up, you know what I mean? Just get that set up so it's better. I see people with multiple camera angles, and I'm like, I can only imagine how much work that is.
Yeah,
like going back and forth.
I tried doing it like 3 times. I was like, this is stupid. I'm not.
It just when you can cut it, you can crop it in. Like for reals, that's all you need. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Especially it's like if I get to the stage where I'm like, I have like a lot of followers or whatever, and then then I'll like invest to make the show better. But like. That's why I do my promos. So my promos that I do, have you been seeing like my most recent ones?
Your promos are dope.
They're funny, huh?
Yeah, they're funny, and your studio, and then the way you cut them, and then the way like they're dope. Like, they look professional. Like they look money.
Yeah. And so my whole thing is like I want to show, and that's what a lot of people like say. They're like, hey, like I've never seen like this type of quality like coming from the Central Valley. I just want to say like people message me and say that, and I'm like cool, like thank you, man. Like my whole thing is just like I want to show people like, and people think like there's a whole team behind me. Like they're like, oh, this guy must have like people editing the podcast, blah blah blah. And like I have Duffy, like, and he helps me with like audio and like he's just my guy that I feed him. Like I'll play things off of him. Like what if I did this, get his feedback. What if I did this, get his feedback. So he's my right hand man, and then my wife. And my wife is just like helping me like organize my fucking life because it's so wild, dude. Dude. Well, I was getting like so many clients like hitting me up, and like I'd come home from work. I'd go on like multiple shoots. I'd be editing, and I get home like at 7 p.m. and she'd be talking to me, and then I'd be like just like not there. She's like, hey, did you hear anything I just said? And I was like, no. I was like, I'm sorry, I have so many things. And so she started like at the beginning of every week, she's like, what things do you have on your schedule this week? And so like, I'll write it out. I ordered hella yellow notepads. Yeah. You could order like fucking 20 for like $10 on Amazon. So I ordered like 20 of those. I put them like in my room, in my other room, in the living room, in the studio, just so that anytime I can, I just write down like, this is on my mind. I got to write this down pretty much. And so I do that. And then at the beginning of every week, she'll put it all on my Google Calendar.
Do you guys, what helped me and my wife, because I'm the same way. Like what happens is like you sit down with your wife or your girl and like you have like 50 things going on in your head.
Yeah, you're telling.
So they're talking to you and you're just like, you're thinking about what you have to do here, what you have to do here. And they're asking you about the laundry or they're asking you about.
Or asking you about your day or telling you about their day.
You're just not there.
Yeah.
So what me and my wife started doing was having once a week or twice a week having coffee or breakfast. Mm-hmm. And like I'll just sit down and we talk about, and sometimes we do talk about like the podcast or everything.
Yeah, exactly. But you need to have a time for it.
Yeah, but we're actually talking. You're
not like on your phone.
Yeah. And it's hard, man. It's tough because she gets pissed off all the time because I'm super passionate about this and I'm super passionate about the gym and everybody trying to fight and it's like when you're that passionate about it, it kind of like it ruins some relationships.
Well, no, you have to remember that you're also passionate about your wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No,
I know exactly. But it's like you have to also make time for your relationships and like especially your wife. You know what I mean? They always say like everyone always says like happy wife, happy life, and I was always like whatever, like blah blah. But no, it's true because like the last thing I want is that my wife to be upset at me, and then I'm off doing a photo shoot and I can't stop thinking about my wife being upset with me or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like it's one of those things where it's just like it's also happy husband, happy life. You know what I mean? But it's true. Like you both people need to be happy.
You both have to be happy.
Exactly. And so it's both of you carving out time in your busy schedules to have that. Like, there's a reason we got married. You know what I mean? Like or whatever. But like it just like you need to carve out that time for those. And that's what we kind of stopped one weekend. I was like, okay, we got to like. For myself, I need to for my mental health. And so my next step is like I got it more organized. My next step is I mean I was always working out, but since I started like photography, videography, and doing it like a lot, like I haven't worked out in like 6 months. You know, I mean I hit the bag, so I have like a heavy bag in my house. And my buddy Jimmy, who I did all the video stuff with, he's like so into martial arts and MMA and UFC and everything. And so like naturally, and then he had a bag and he hung it up in my house and. It's the funnest workout you can do. Yeah. It's good cardio. It's fun, and time goes by. You know what I mean?
You can do it at Strike Fitness in Los Banos, California.
Strike Fitness, Los Banos, California.
No, but it's crazy because people are like, "Oh, you work at a gym," and then like now that I'm like coaching, I've literally I've got out of shape, and people don't realize like I'm there 24/7, but
You're coaching,
and I'm helping people, and it's like I hit pads the other day, and I was just fucking happy because like I'm hitting pads again, and so it's like taking time out for yourself rather than
exactly, and that's the hardest thing when you're someone who grinds a lot, like it's just like you kind of just dismiss like time for yourself. You're like this is my time for myself, and what's crappy or it's good, it's a blessing and a curse, but for me it's like. I'm passionate about videography. I'm passionate about my podcast. I do a lot of client work, but like in my free time, sometimes I like to work on stuff for myself, but it's like I'm almost having no time to work on any video projects for myself. And it's just like one of those things where I'm like, maybe I need to stop taking so many clients because I got to a point where I was, like, I'm going to do any gig I get because I don't get that many gigs. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I guess I can probably schedule people out a couple months so I don't have to worry like doing yes. You know what I mean? So with so many things. And I think carving out time for yourself is important, and even just me slowing down and like me and my wife do a similar thing where like we kind of just try to recap and talk like what are our goals, what are things we want to do, and things like that. But it is important to carve out time for yourself, and that's something that like I need to do, and probably like even you, like you're saying like you get so caught up in coaching and the podcast and everything like that. It's like you're not even giving yourself the chance to like hit pads when you're there all the time. You know what I mean? Like, but it's the same thing with me. It's like I may be doing videos for all these weddings and stuff like that, but I need to give myself time to do video projects that I'm passionate about that are different than other people's. You know what I mean?
And what I think, because I'm kind of going through the same thing. When we first start off doing everything that we're doing, we're just looking to do it. Like we're looking for the gigs. We're looking for all those stuff. Now, like I've been looking to do this martial arts thing, and I've been looking for this podcast thing, and for people to interview, for people to coach, and like now it's here. And now, like, I was so used to grinding it out and saying yes all the time to be able to make it there, that I'm not used to saying no. So I say yes all the fucking time.
You say yes before you even think about it. And then I was like, yeah, I could probably do that this week. And I'm like, I have 4 gigs this week. Why would I say yeah?
But now it's like we got to turn it down a little bit and say, you know what? Now I'm booked. Like,
exactly. Now it's like, it's okay to be like, yeah, in 2 weeks I can do this. You know what I mean? But for some reason, it's just like you feel like the need to, yes.
Because I think it comes from when you're first grinding, because we're still grinding it out, but
you're learning now.
Yeah, like you're finally in it. It takes time to get into a process of something, and once you're in it, it's like now you have to manage your time.
Yeah, exactly. Managing your time, and then that's the one thing being a freelancer or like being your own boss or whatever. Like it's fucking cool, but you're also in charge of everything. So you also have to like realize like, okay, I have to take time to list all my invoices, to organize my invoices, to like do all this stuff that you don't think about like when you're doing other gigs.
Well, like I had a blessing with the coach I was under, because she's an accountant, and then she owns 2 businesses, and that she opened herself, right? She opened the gym, and then she has an accounting business. So having that, like, not just someone teaching me how to punch and kick people, she's teaching me like, hey, if you want to do this on your own, you have to do this,
That's cool. And my favorite thing is people who want to help people and that like don't feel threatened. So like sometimes you're like in an industry or whatever, and you know you and somebody else might be like similar skill level, but they don't want you to get better than them or something like that. What I love seeing people do is like build each other up. Like, hey, this is how I did it. Like, and you're more than welcome to learn from me. And like, I'm not going to feel betrayed if you go work with somebody else, if you're going to do something else, if you have a gig by yourself or whatever. And for you, it's kind of cool probably because she's like, ideally is your end goal, you want to open up your own gym? Or at least
I want to be, like, I live in like, the gym thing, that's like a lot of work to open up. And what happens is like, what happens with gyms like that are getting successful, like there's 3 hot gyms or about 4. There's MMA Gold, there's AKA, there's Alpha Male, and like CSA, and like all these bigger gyms. And can't leave out the Resistance in Pleasanton, California. No, but there's these gyms that when they first start off, like they're about the name. They're doing good. They're about the name, and then they get big. They get, I don't want to say famous, but they start having elite fighters. They start having pro fighters, and then like the inside gets
the culture switches.
The turmoil, the turmoil between coaches, and they always break apart. The ones like Alpha Male and AKA, like AKA is a good example. Like Crazy Bob Cook and Javier Mendez, and like the guys that first started off, like they still are together. That name is still, it's just AKA. It's not Javier Mendez. It's not Bob Cook. It's not Daniel Cormier. It's AKA.
Is that the one in San Jose? Or
in San Jose. Yeah. And so my thinking is like, I don't give a fuck.
Because Khabib's guys are there, right?
Now? Yeah, Khabib's guys are the Russians.
Yeah, the Russians. Yeah.
And they have a lot of different gyms, but different like sister or brother gyms.
Yeah.
But and my thinking is like, forget about like if I want to open up a Jesse Diaz gym. Just keep strike. Just keep strike and just keep growing strike.
And keep helping with the culture and the community within it. And so have you always been into fighting? Like, or martial arts? Like, or when did you really like dive into like getting involved with it?
Because I've always wanted, like, my grandpa was a boxer. Then and I always like had gloves in my car. I didn't find like actual martial arts gyms until I was like 21. And then I started really training, and then I kind of did that as a hobby, and I always said I wanted to fight. Then I got married and to a girl that has a kid, and then I had to work, and then like this is like the rough.
No, I got you. The quick version.
And then like I at 28 I met Coach, who's like, you could do this, and then so I at 28 I started fighting, but it's like a gym.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I try to tell people that are there and that are trying to grow in the gym. A gym's like it's free networking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand. I've seen different gyms grow big, and I was part of different gyms that grew big, and if you grow with it,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the networking that you have there. Everybody's going there. Like if you're, I'm literally at one place the whole entire time, but I'm seeing videographers, I'm seeing accountants, I'm seeing doctors, I'm seeing, you know what I mean? All the people that go there,
Mm-hmm.
and they know Coach Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like free. Why would I give that up to go go open up my own gym or do something like that? I never, in the future, in my goals is not that. The future in my goals is like Strike is huge. We have professional
fighters coming out of there. Yeah, exactly.
And then also
someone else. The new 209. We need because I mean if Nate and Nick are gonna fight anymore, we need somebody from the 209, you guys.
But
dude, check it out. I just got 209 tatted on me, bro. Look at it.
What the fuck? That's why I was like, dang, this guy's about.
This guy's I think you said you're right. I think you said you're about it. I was just like, well, my whole thing is like, I mean, my body's not a temple. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I have like my chest done, my this arm's done. I want to get tatted, but like also it's always money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be cool to dude. That'd be so awesome. That just build it up and get some amateur pro fights and then move up and whatever.
Yeah.
And so do you guys? And so right now is it like you guys are go to like amateur competitions or what do you guys do?
Yeah, we have amateur fighters. We have 5 amateur fighters, and then we have a bunch of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Those kids are savages.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I see like it's always funny. It's fun. I always enjoy watching little kids hit pads and stuff like that or kick or whatever.
Yeah, whenever you want to come down, dude, you should come check it out.
Dude, yeah, no, I would love to check it out. It'd be cool.
Yeah, I was even gonna message you today, but I know you're like busy.
Yeah, sorry, I can't do after this. But yeah.
But
no, that would have been.
But yeah, man, I my goal is to open up my own studio. Like I want to have a studio, have a team.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like I want to push.
Yeah. And it's like my ideal goal. Like if I could just do what I wanted to do, I was like full-time podcast. Like that'd be sick if I could do that. And I'm talking like I'm saying make a living. And when I say make a living, people think like they're thinking like I want to make like over $100,000 or something like that. Like I'm saying like if I could get paid $50,000 for doing a podcast, I made it. You know what I mean? Like I made it. If I can and then pay people who are helping me. Like, that's all I could ever ask for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm still going to do videography and photography for, like, gigs that I'm passionate about, gigs I want to do. But if I could, like, narrow it down to, like, doing the podcast and then a few gigs I wanted, like, that'd be ideal. And slowly but surely, trying to make that happen. And I think it's doable, but once again, it's just, like, I don't know how. There's no one in the Central Valley that I know that has, like, who does a podcast and makes a full time. I know there's some people who do have it, but like I know they're backed by like a lot of money. And so I don't know anybody like an entrepreneur who's like done it all themselves, you know what I mean? And is getting this income and knows how to do these things. And so that's why I messaged you like, hey, can I come on your podcast? I'm interested by other people who have podcasts. I just found another podcast in Fresno called like the Dudes Podcast or something like that. And every single time, or Dudes Being Dudes Podcast, that's what it's called. But every single time I see anybody like that, I just like message them like, hey, I'm glad to find like another podcast in Central Valley. Keep it up. Like I'm all about like helping everybody grow because like when I started, I was just like, I didn't know anything. And like I saw you. So when I started, I came across your podcast pretty early and I was like, oh, there's another podcast in Central Valley. And like, then I become across another one. And then there's another podcast in Fresno called Still Here. And they hit me up about going on their podcast. And I'm going to do that when I get back from Costa Rica. But I'm always interested like, hey, how do you do things? You know what I mean? This is how I do things. Like, I do them this way. Like, you have multiple cameras. How does that work? Blah, blah, blah. Like, and it's just stuff that, like, maybe they only me and you are really interested in. But I get so many questions like, hey, like, I like your podcast stuff. Like, could you help me set up mine? I'm almost like, I mean, no, probably not.
No, in my head, I say no. Like,
no, it's like, I don't mind helping somebody who's my friend. And, like I consider us friends now, you know what I mean? And, like, I don't mind helping, giving knowledge and stuff like that. But, like, I'm not going to come over there help you set up everything and do it for free after I just spent a full year and a fucking half getting to where I am. Like, It's like I have like, and I think I want to start doing some type of podcast course, just something like $500, and I'll teach you what I know. Like, and this is what it is.
People want the easy way. And that's the reason why they don't do it.
Yeah.
Like they want it to like, okay, work right away.
They're like, oh, I already have guests I can have on, but I just need to like it set up. And I'm like, well, that's part of it. Is like you having your shitty episodes like I had, so you could understand and figure out what happens. And I'm not, and like it's like I will, like if you pay me, you know what I mean. But if I don't know you, it's like really hard for me to like want to come help you after it's like, dude, I put in like my 10,000 hours already, like, and I will help you. It's just like when people ask like, hey, you should help me out, and then it's like there's no thought of like, oh, I should pay you for your time or whatever. It's like, dude, like. It's like obviously I'm being of service to you, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with photography, videography. People try to lowball you, like when you're first starting out. And I get it, when you're first starting out, it's like I was doing gigs for free. I was doing gigs for $50, $100. But like
podcasting, most of it's like the hours you put in don't.
Yeah, I'm getting like I always tell people like I have sponsors and I get like X amount of money from them, right? But it's like I'm getting that to like keep me sane. The thing that like I'm putting in all this time, so I am getting some money.
But let me ask you how much because of the podcast, like how much networking have you got because of the photography?
And that's one of the things I never thought the podcast would have. I mean, for some reason when going into it, I was like, this podcast is this podcast and my photography, videography, or their photography, videography, two completely separate things. What I've come to realize is that like that shit has helped me out more in my photography and videography business than I've ever. It's all more like you're saying, networking. All my podcast is me networking to people listening, people who like are listening to me. They're gonna be like, if they need a photographer or videographer, they're gonna be like, I should hit up that dude. You know what I mean? Or if I sit down and have a conversation with like a business owner or somebody, you know what I mean? And I have an hour-long conversation with them, and then they have video work they need or photography work they need. They're probably going to pick the person who they sat down and had a full hour-long conversation, who felt like they know the guy, versus somebody who's like a random person. And so it's like one of those blessings that I never thought like it would be hand in hand. And now I'm just like so thankful. Like if they just complement each other.
Money.
Yeah, they complement each. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is bringing in the podcast is bringing in money in a different way than I thought it would. Like, it's not through sponsors. I mean, it is through sponsors, but it's also through networking and getting me videography gigs and photography gigs.
You know how many people have came to the gym? One of our coaches is because of the podcast.
He heard it years.
Yeah, our wrestling coach is like, he heard the podcast and like.
Isn't it make you feel wild? Like when you like, even when people listen to like honestly, it's like I feel like I'm a good I'm a good speaker on camera and like in these scenarios, but put me in front of a crowd and I'm like, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm just not that good of a talker. Like I overthink it if there's a crowd in front of me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did a vendor fair where I was selling like shirts and stuff. Oh, I brought you. I got you a shirt. If you're from the Central Valley, people, I got these for sale. I'm gonna open it up.
Yeah, you're good.
Almonds, allergies, and asthma. Central Valley, California, people, for sale.
That's dope.
There you go, man. And then I did get you I got you a print too.
I got some Hasselhoff hair shirts you could have.
Dope. And I got you a print that I got.
Dope. Hell yeah.
Yeah, so that's like Firefall. And so it was a photo I took of Firefall and then a photo I took of a moon, and then I combined them together.
Wait, what?
So like Firefall, you know what Firefall is in Yosemite?
No.
So I'm trying to think. Basically, 1 week in February every year, there's a section where the sun hits this crevice where there's a waterfall, and the waterfall's only running in like in the wintertime. So there has to be enough snow melt. And so it hits this crevice, and like literally it's a straight shot from where the sun is to that corner right there.
Yeah.
And so it's creating the illumination that, so without the moon there, it's still that color. Like, yeah. And then what I did was there's a photo of a moon that's orange, and I photoshopped it into it.
Two photos.
Two photos. Okay. Yes, exactly. The moon's one photo. The Firefall's another photo, and I photoshopped it to make it look like the moon's flowing into the waterfall.
Dope, man.
Yeah. I posted it on Reddit, and it's like my one photo that blew the fuck up. Like, it was a little not as satisfying as I would like it to be, just because like like I knew kind of when I was.
It's never gonna be enough.
Yeah, when I was.
It's never.
No,
that's how
I know. I got 50,000 upvotes on Reddit, and I'm like, I wasn't that happy about it.
Art. When it comes to art, it's never gonna be enough.
Well, and my whole thing was like, I think there's photos that are just more simple that I took, and I like when I was making this, I was like, this is the type of shit that's gonna blow up on the internet, kind of like, and then it did, and then it was just kind of like. Look at my other photos, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is cool and all, but like, if this is the type that like it'll get reposted on a whole bunch of pages, and when it was good, I got like a lot of traction from it and stuff like that. Like, people were like, "Where can I buy it at?" I put it like on a site where they can just order it from, and I made like almost $1,000 from that photo alone, which is wild. Like that was my first time where I was like,
literally did this, click.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's more to it, you know what I mean? But that's what other people are like. I don't understand why you charge so much. Like you just press a button. Like, well, I'm like, no, I edit it. Yeah.
My photographer friend that does other fights.
Yeah.
Stuff, I go, dude, photography is so easy.
You just click. Yeah, just to piss them off, get them riled up. Yeah.
But it's I'll kind of end it on this.
Mm-hmm.
I had just held pads for a local, like they're well known in United States, especially in the South. But I held pads for the singer's wife, and we were just talking after the session. We were talking about how Strike's growing, and then I seen her deal with her husband's fans, and her be nice to everybody, right? She's just super nice to everybody, and she deals with it well. And then I'm like, man, you do a good job at it. And I told her, I was like, man, Strike's growing, and I feel like at these events, I forget. And because of the podcast, like I'm just an amateur fighter, dude. Like I'm not a great fighter. I'm just an amateur fighter that loves to put himself on social media, and all of a sudden I'm getting known through.
Oh yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Weird when somebody goes, "Hey, like I know, yeah, dude."
I started doing security in San Jose, and people are coming up to me, and I never knew. Like it's just weird. No, but she told me, she's like, and I was telling her about Strike and how it's growing, and I'm forgetting people's names. I don't know how you deal with it. Oh, and then she told me I forget. She's all, it's the price of fame. I go, fame. This is not fame. She's all, honey, it's fame. And she left me with this. It was kind of, I was like, she went deep, but she said, anything you do that people remember and thank you for, that's fame.
That's great. That's a great little.
You know what I mean? Being remembered for something by anybody, that's fame. That's fame, and that you should be. She told me you should be proud of that, and I was like, "Fuck, this lady's just throwing wisdom on me." You know?
Yeah, no, that's cool, and it's one of those things too, because like it's like I go out, like I went to like a dispensary recently, and someone's like, "Hey, you're the guy with the podcast." I was like, "Oh yeah," and then I went somewhere else. I went somewhere else, and someone was like, "Hey, I love your podcast," and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, and my wife was with me, and she was just like, all these people coming up to you, like, and then like I'll be doing a gig, and someone's like, and then someone came up to me, and they're like, "I haven't seen you in such a long time." They gave me a hug. I was like, I have no idea who this chick is. Like, she was just like, "Oh, what have you been up to?" And I was like, "What is going on?" Like, I was like, I don't know. And it's funny because anytime someone like brings up my podcast to me, I'm like, I don't know why. Like, I'm like, oh, you just shouldn't talk to me. Like, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? I'm always like, hey, thanks for the support. I really appreciate it. But when people like want to talk to me about it, I'm almost like shy about it. And it's kind of interesting because it's like I'm like you. I wouldn't think it's not fame. Like, I'm not famous. You know what I mean? At all. But I guess like if anybody's messaging you and they remember stuff about you, then it's some form of fame, or you're leaving, whether it's fame, whether you're leaving an impact on people. Yeah, it's something. You're leaving an impact on people, and like you might have a different fan base, than me. I might have a different fan base than you. We're both in the Central Valley at the end of the day, but we're both just trying to enrich our communities. And something that I've learned from my podcast is like the importance of community. And I'm sure through Strike Fitness, you've learned that. Through other things in your life, you learned it. But through my podcast, I really got. Each guest would kind of remind me about community. And it was one of those things that I didn't really think about. And then I realized that, I'm making my own community through this podcast too. I'm making the community that like, hey, the Central Valley is a cool place. Like, it's a cool place to live. Like, it's not as bad as people make it. And if there's one thing I can say on this podcast is that like, I love the Central Valley of California. I love all that's in it. I love every single little city from basically above Yuba City to Bakersfield. You know what I mean? We all have similarities. You can be from Bakersfield and you'll probably have similarities with people from Sacramento, probably have similarities with people from Merced, Los Banos, wherever. It's because we were all raised the same way. We all remember going on trip. When you're a kid here, you come here and then you freaking like you're going on a trip. It's 2 hours away always, but there's something about packing your car up with people and heading to a swimming hole and then coming home. It's like other places in like the Bay Area maybe don't do that. You know, LA maybe don't do that. They already have everything there. You know what I mean? But they have like the beaches there. Where us, it's like the nostalgia for me of like going on a trip, packing it up, getting an ice chest full of beer, taking three carfuls of people, all following like caravanning somewhere. Like that's like a valley thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just love the Central Valley, and I props to you for starting your own podcast, man. It's fucking awesome. I love that seeing other people promote their own podcasts, and I don't know. Thank you for having me on, dude. I really appreciate it.
And the man is about the man is about the 209. The dude got 209 tatted.
I got 209 tatted on me, you guys.
If he's not about it, like now
Come
you know
on.
he's
exactly.
But thank you guys for doing this. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Micah, for doing this.
Of course, man. Hey.
Where do people find you on
you can find
media?
me Central Valley Podcast on Instagram. You can follow me on YouTube if you type in Central Valley Podcast. If you type in Real Talk and whatnot, or any of my guest names, it'll come up. And just subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. See the promos. That's all I can ask for you guys. Any support, I really appreciate.
Thanks, man. Thank you guys.
Of course.
I love you guys.
Have a good one.